Okay, we're recording. Excellent. Well, welcome. This is the second time we've met here. The third time we've met this year. The objective of this particular group is that we meet ideally once a week, and we have this time set out. So if you can, if you would, set the time aside in the calendar every week. I will certainly announce it if I can't make it. And keep hosting it. We had only 3 people from last week here, and we talked about the circle of excellence, and we talked about, what was the other thing we did?
The verb.
Oh yes, the emotional switch.
Yeah.
Wanted to review that a little bit and maybe cover it. Those of you who don't have that information, 2 things. If you go to the meetup, I posted a small YouTube link where we did the Circle of Excellence as a short demonstration. It's about 15 minutes long. And also contact me personally, and I will send you the 7-page PDF of the emotional switch. Have you had a chance to practice it?
I haven't practiced it, but I did read through the guide.
Did it help? How you understand it?
Yeah, it kind of solidified pretty much everything that we went over. So, and it gave a really good description on because I was a little confused on the verbs and the noun, the basic stuff, but it gave a really good description.
All right, excellent.
That set in more.
Okay, all right. Questions about, you had a question I said to remind you earlier.
Yeah, I went to your website and saw how many books you have published.
Yeah.
And I have on my goal list to publish a book.
Okay.
So when I saw there was 40 there, I'm like, how does that happen? How do you do it?
Okay. Yeah, I quit counting when I think I totaled 12 of them. But, okay, I will tell you how I did it. I tell you how I recommend, how I would tell someone to do it if they want to do it like I did it. First of all, I've never written fiction, so I can't really tell you how to write fiction. What I did is I wanted to take everything that I knew, everything that I knew that was about influence, persuasion, and put into this book here. And so I just started going with this was about 10 years ago. I had never written anything before 10 years ago. I didn't even feel competent to write. But I just wanted to catalog everything that I knew that had to do with influence, persuasion, NLP, all these little mind tricks and things like that. I started with generally, when I do it, I start with an outline of just the things, and I start adding flesh to the outline. And if I keep adding more and more and more and more, I end up having an entire book at the end. That's typically how I do it. So the first time I published the book, and I had a mailing list of people and started to make sales, and then my motivation came in. And I thought, well, what are some other things that I could write? And I had written some other things as well. And eventually there came a point, and it was like after the 6th or 7th book, where I realized, I'm not writing because I want to write. I'm writing because I think I should. And I completely got bored with the whole process, so I just stopped. And so now when I'm doing any sort of writing, it's because there's something that I think needs to be written, that needs to be done. Most recently, what I've been working on is when I work with hypnosis clients. My process is a program that I've divided into 3 sessions. The first session is usually the most dramatic. As long as they have a result that I understand that they want and it's different. Usually at the end of that first session, it's pretty dramatic. They can't bring up a desire for a cigarette, or cravings are gone, or they just feel a sense of confidence, whatever they're working with. That's the first session. Second session is an enhancement of their personal identity. So they see themselves as a person that they admire. And that's more dramatic than you can imagine, because most people are walking around here remembering all the childhood things their parents said years ago and not feeling good about themselves. But once they start to see themselves as someone that they can admire, it makes a huge difference. The third session, typically it is mostly just a reinforcement. Sometimes if there's remaining trouble, any sort of issues that come up, then I can usually create really strong amnesia. If it's like for a craving, I create strong aversion, discomfort, dissatisfaction toward what it is they used to crave. And always at the end of a session, I'll test it. I'll say, tell me what you feel when you want this. And if I've done my job right, if they've followed my instructions, it's like they get uncomfortable. Sometimes they get nauseous. I never suggest that, but sometimes it's the result. Now, beyond those 3 sessions, I offer unlimited follow-up. Usually they don't have to see me, but you know, life is complicated. Things happen. Sometimes the divorce paper gets thrown in your lap and you want to start smoking again. I understand. So they just come back and I'll work with them again. Yes?
Are you able to help people that have really like hard drug addictions?
Yes, I am very cautious with that.
Uh-huh.
Because I know how difficult that is, but I have
a loved one.
I have worked with someone who was meth addicted. Now, again, he didn't want to smoke meth, but, and of course his family didn't either. And I let him know, look, this is not something I take lightly. You and I have to talk. I need to know you're sincere and willing to follow my instructions. And it was not typically easy. He did have to come back to me a few times. And lately I've talked with him, his family, and he does great. So yeah, meth is not an easy thing to work with if someone's been. So I was very, very sort of hesitant about it. Yeah, I have done that.
All right, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Yes. Dan.
This is one that's kind of fresh on my mind because of something that came up, but I've done some reading about like self-image and how like that's pretty huge.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of reminds me of drug addiction. Read a little bit, like Tony Robbins mentioned it, like if somebody gets the identity or the self-image that like I'm a drug user, you know, that's really hard to overcome when they kind of get that identity. They see themselves that way. Is that type of stuff incorporated with hypnosis? And is
Well, yeah, I mean, it is.
dealing with identity, kind of reshaping identity? Or
Very
anything?
much so. I mean, I can really, in a very straightforward way, using hypnosis, and I'm hoping sometime here we'll actually start doing this. Using hypnosis, I can switch responses pretty quickly. We'll do that today. So that, you know, they used to have a craving for a cigarette, and now they think of a cigarette and it feels like weird, uncomfortable. They just can't want it. So that's one session. The second session is when I make them, I reinforce the fact they see themselves as a non-smoker. Not an ex-smoker, because ex-smokers sometimes have cravings, but a non-smoker. And, you know, build in any of the other positive stuff that's there. So, yeah, identity, you know, when you change at the level of who you think you are, you change massively. So that's usually the second session that I work with somebody. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Questions about the emotional switch that we did last time, or about the what was the emotional switch, and we also did the circle of excellence. Have you guys, are any of you familiar with the circle of excellence? I think that would be a really good thing to review. You did it. You did it. I did it. And
Can
we
I do
have.
it?
Are you well?
Oh, you want someone that's
In
familiar
terms
with
of
it?
walking
Okay.
You had, yeah, you were not here
experience.
last time.
Okay.
We have 3 people that weren't, 4 people that weren't here. And I think it's a great opportunity for those of us who are familiar with it, to walk them through it. Okay, you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, I do. I mean,
Yeah, if
'cause
you
I've-
feel comfortable.
Well, I mean, I'll demonstrate it once,
And
and then if that refreshes your memory, we can go from there.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so the circle of excellence is a way of creating a very positive state on command that is resourceful, confident, all the pluses that you would want in that situation. So consider that. Who would want that? Raise your hands. Who's willing to volunteer now? Okay, Esteban. Come on up, volunteer.
I forgot my name for a second.
It worked.
All right. So let's talk about what would be the emotional state that you want? How would you describe
That I want?
that would be the most positive, the most beneficial, the most
Confidence,
okay? There's a good one.
self-loving.
Okay. Self-confidence, self-esteem, self-acceptance. Are there situations where you know you're in and you lack that, and that feeling would be really great?
Yeah, when I'm, I do freelance, so like almost every month when I gotta pay my bills,
Uh-huh.
things, stuff like that. So I have this sense that maybe I should just like get some more stable working, which I don't want,
Okay.
So that's me lacking self-confidence.
Okay. So in those moments, end of the month, you gotta pay your bills. And you're in that state and you felt that sense of self-confidence, what would be different?
Well, I think that I would just feel more confident that the money's gonna be there. And it always typically is, so
Alright,
that's the
good.
other thing. So there's that dynamic.
Okay.
Where it's like I'm feeling a sense of lack when there is no lack.
Okay.
So I guess it's a lack of, I don't know, maybe it's a self-esteem.
Okay.
Confidence.
Okay, good. Okay, so this whole thing, the circle of excellence, it just begins by imagining there is a circle in front of you with about one pace away. And when you can just imagine that circle, let me know.
Okay.
Okay. Now I want you to imagine that in that circle is that sense of confidence, that sense of self-esteem, that empowerment that you want to feel, that feeling of control, all those positives. And that circle has, imagine it's sort of like radiating this light up and down this cylinder within the circle. So that you absolutely know, if you stepped in there, you'd feel it. Okay, now, when you have an idea of what that color is, let me know.
I do.
Great, how would you describe it?
Blue?
Excellent, okay. Anything you can do to that to sort of augment it, make it even better? Some people put sparkles in it, some people brighten it up.
Well, it's glowing.
Okay.
I want it to glow.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like shooting upward. Very Tron-like, if you've ever seen that movie.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so on the count of 3, I want you to just step into that circle, knowing that when you do, you'll feel that feeling, and stay in there until the feeling starts to build. Okay, you ready?
I think so.
On the count of 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3, step right in. Got it? You feel the feeling?
A little bit.
Okay.
I want it to be there.
Okay, turn it up. Don't just want it. Imagine what it feels like. Bring it up. It's around you. It's glowing. You felt
Okay.
confident before. You feel it?
I think so.
Okay, good. Just go ahead and step out of that.
I'm naturally skeptical.
That's okay. Just understand that all you have to do is follow my instructions. If you
Okay.
follow the instructions, and I've done my job. So, what could you change about that experience that would help you even more? About what you felt in that circle?
I don't know, a little more power, I guess.
Yeah.
Like more energized,
Okay.
I think, I could feel.
You have, in your experience, you've probably had times where you felt that confident. You felt this confidence. You had this sense of power, this energized feeling. Can you remember that?
I
Okay, imagine putting that in a circle, letting the color sort of modify along with it. When you see that color change, so it demonstrates those feelings are in there,
Okay.
let me know.
Okay.
Okay, now I want you to know that when you step in there, and only when you step in there, you know you're going to feel those feelings. When you've got that set in your mind, let me know. There should also be a little bit of eagerness, of desire to step in there because you're going to feel those things.
Okay.
Got it? Go ahead and step in. Excellent.
I feel good, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good, good. Okay, take a moment, memorize what this feels like.
Okay.
And when I say memorize, there are ways you can memorize it. It has thoughts that go through your head. There are emotions that you feel, and there can also be feelings in the body.
Okay.
Sometimes the whole posture sort of lifts up. Got it? Okay, go ahead and step out. Okay, do another test. Ask yourself if there's anything that needs to change, if that will work in those times at the end of the month. Would that feel really good for you?
It would.
Okay. Okay, turn it up if you have to. And one more time. When you're ready, step in there knowing you're going to feel that again.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah.
Good, good. Close your eyes. Feel that feeling. Let it go through your body. Memorize it. Commit it entirely to memory. In fact, let that circle just sort of become a ball and sort of like permeate you and become a part of you. When you've got that, let me know.
Okay.
Now, feeling this confidence, this empowerment. Imagine yourself at the end of the month and you feel this feeling. You always know you've been able to pay your bills. You're going to do it again. Feels good, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay? Go to the end of the next month. Same situation. This feeling's right there. Got it? Okay? The month after that. Got it?
I do.
Okay? Open your eyes. Okay, now, you can step out where the circle used to be. So you move away from where the circle used to be, and you still notice the feeling, though, right?
I do, yeah.
Okay, very useful for you?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, thanks.
Okay, does that make sense? Okay, what we're going to try and do is, when we get together every week and do this, try and review at least some of what we did the week before. And I really encourage you to take notes. I will make an attempt to if I have any written material, to send it out. I don't have yet. Yeah, I know, I'm not wearing my hat.
I know, and you don't show up very well with the screen behind you without your hat on.
Oh, okay.
White screen.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why you're wearing your hat.
So,
Contrast.
That's how I knew it was
okay,
you.
so
and
everyone
actually-
asks, why do I wear black and wear this hat? Okay, and so I like to say, well, there's lots of different reasons. One is because I always know what I'm going to wear. What are you going to wear today? It's going to be black. That's one way. The other reason is, if you're wearing black, the only thing someone can look at is your face. Everything is just black. So that's nice as a hypnotist. And sometimes I totally admit I'm being very pretentious, and I want to be a unique little snowflake that wanders around the world totally in my own unique space, and so I wear black and have this strange hat on my face. Okay, so we're going to cover the change personal history pattern. Now, Dan, have you covered that in your NLP training?
Yeah, there's a video on it. It has been a while. I intended to review that,
Okay.
but I didn't get to it this week, so.
Okay, so again, I encourage you to take notes on this. The change personal history pattern is one of those things. If you've got this down and you want to be a professional NLP person, it's going to be one of the things in your holster all the time you're going to be reaching for. It is a tool in your toolbox. You're going to use the change personal history pattern. You're going to be using the phobia cure probably a lot as well. So those are the two basics. How I want to start, and I'll probably try and remember to repeat this often, is all of the NLP patterns have beneath them another pattern that I think it's John Oberdorf calls the meta pattern. It is the pattern that is sort of consistent with every type of change work. So keep in mind there are two parts of change work. There's the state you begin with, which is often the problem state, and this state that you want, which is the solution state. In its most simple form, the meta pattern, the pattern that is beneath all other patterns, is you start by having the person feeling the problem. They're in the problem state. You then distract them so that's not in their awareness, and you talk about the solution state. And then you talk to them and start to bring about this solution state sufficiently enough they actually feel it. And then you bring them in the situation where the problem used to be, but now they have this state, this solution state. And all of a sudden, these two worlds collide, and if you've made this positive enough, this is now their main reaction. That's the very briefest description of the meta pattern. There is a book on Amazon, and it's called The Meta Pattern, and it describes it. If you are familiar with any of the NLP processes, it will sort of describe how they fit. That fits into every part of change work in neurolinguistic programming. Okay, how I want to demonstrate the change personal history pattern is, needs to talk first about anchors. Who here is familiar with anchors? Who is unfamiliar with anchors? Okay. An anchor is something that triggers a feeling. And there are very intentional ways to set and fire anchors. They happen to us all the time. I guess one of the very common anchors that triggers a feeling is that you're driving along and all of a sudden the inside of your cab of your vehicle lights up like an aurora borealis with blue and red lights, and you look in the mirror and you see these things going around here, and you realize, and all of a sudden you're in this entirely different state because of these lights. And all of a sudden, anytime you see those lights, a little bit of this feeling comes about. So those lights become an anchor to the feeling. And there are ways of very intentionally doing it. Neurolinguistic programming is filled with ways of intentionally setting anchors. Usually, in this case, we're going to demonstrate setting anchors with a touch. We're going to set two anchors. One anchor is, and I'm going to I'll use the knuckles of the hand here, this hand. One anchor is for the negative state, the feeling that is the problem state, and the other is for the solution state. So when you're with somebody and you want to apply this change personal history pattern, you ask them, what is the thing you want to change? What is the response you have in a situation that you can't help, but you don't like it, you don't want? And that can apply to a lot of different things. So I'd like to be able to demonstrate it. I'll talk about it as I'm demonstrating it. I'll talk about it in more detail when we're done, and then we'll break up and see how well you guys remember it and take notes. And I'll be happy to supervise as we do this. So anyone want to volunteer? Who has a pattern that they want to change? Or you can make up. All right. Good, have a seat right here. Ah, yes. Tracy, so what is it you would like to change?
Worrying.
Worrying. Okay. So worrying is something you're familiar with.
Yes.
Okay. You know what it's like to worry.
Yes.
What would you rather be feeling?
Calm. And that happy.
Aw, happy, okay.
I'm happy.
I'm gonna need to take some notes. Does anyone have paper and pencil that I can use?
I can get you one.
Yes, please.
I have paper, but I don't have a pen.
This does take some note-taking when you're doing it to help somebody, because you're gonna have to make a list of various things here. So, worry, and as opposed to calm and happy. Okay. Let's get that paper and pencil and then take some notes. This is the right line. Oh, excellent. Okay, great. First thing I write is your name. Okay. So, what I want to do is I want you to think of, let me have you just place your hand right here. I'm going to touch you here and here. Okay. What I want you to do is we're going to think of 4 different events that were filled with worry. Okay, and I assume this would be a worry that's, oh, you got this one down.
I got it.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So can you think of the most recent time that you felt worried?
Yeah, when I asked my roommate today to pay rent, and she's kind of blew me off. I was like, maybe I'll get it, maybe I won't. The
Okay.
utilities, it's not rent.
Okay.
Utilities.
So in that moment, in your mind, go ahead and close your eyes, put yourself right there in that moment, see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt, till you feel this worry. And when you've got it, let me know. Okay. You'll notice I'm touching the knuckle here while she's feeling worried. Okay. With your eyes closed, so let's just call this, what we'll call this rent, right? Utilities, okay, utilities, good. Okay, I want you to use this feeling like it were a tow rope to pull you back into time, to a time not long before this event where you felt the very same worry. When you've got it, let me know. So, put yourself right there, see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt. And we're going to give this one a name. Now, I don't need to know the details. If you want to tell me, that's fine, but just give a name to it. And what would you want to call this event?
She was late on rent.
Okay, this is late on rent. Okay. Now, why don't you go even further back? Let's go maybe years. Not the very first time you felt this worry, but years before. So let this be like a tow rope that pulls you back in time. When you felt this worry, you've got that memory, let me know. Put yourself there, see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt. And then let's give this third event further back in time.
Multiple roommates driving me crazy.
Okay. 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 Multiple roommates. Good. For those of you who are noticing, I'm not left-handed, and I'm having to take notes with my left hand. Okay, now I want you to use this same feeling and go as far back in time. Go to the very earliest memory that you can remember feeling this feeling. When you've got it, maybe even the very first time, then let me know.
Okay.
Put yourself right there in that moment. See what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt. And this may not be the first time, but we're just going to call it the first time. All right? Okay, so going back from the most recent, which is paying utilities, then we go back late on rent, then multiple roommates, and then go all the way back to the very first time, and this feeling is all right there.
Mhm.
All right. Take a deep breath, let your eyes open, look around the room. I'm sort of interrupting the whole state. I'm not touching that point because it's now associated with that feeling. We'll do that in a little while. So what would you rather feel than this worry?
I would rather have faith that my needs are met and that I don't have to take care of other people that are not my children.
Okay. Well, let's try that. I want to add to that.
And have help.
Okay. What would be a feeling that would motivate a response that is so much better than what you did with your roommate?
Gratefulness?
Gratefulness? Well, okay, and again, let's test it out. Your roommate's there. She's saying, maybe. Will gratefulness be enough to help you through this?
No, because I'm not grateful for anything. With
Right.
her.
Okay. So I'm
But that's what I would rather feel.
rather feel, but let's talk about a feeling that would motivate a response that you would really benefit.
In that specific moment.
For example,
Like,
let's
as
test
it
it.
is.
Yeah.
As it is.
Yeah. I mean, I can suggest some things, but you tell me what comes to mind.
I don't have a realistic emotion that would be opposite
Okay.
that I feel towards it.
Okay, but I'm going to suggest something.
Okay.
How about we'll call it a sense of firm set of boundaries that's backed up with strength, where if your roommate gives you any BS, you just have a very flat affect. You say, no, it's just not.
Yeah.
You know what that feeling would be like.
Yeah.
What would you call that feeling?
Assertiveness?
Assertiveness. I like that. Okay, assertiveness. So I want you to think back and,
However,
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a negative association with assertiveness because a lot of people, sometimes when you're assertive with people, they see it and they respect it. And then other times it creates this kind of like onslaught of like you stuck up for yourself, so now you're the B word.
uh-huh.
And
But
then,
if a real
and then there's
assertive-
revenge and all
Okay.
that, you know.
Okay.
So that's kind of why I don't go with that initial thing, because I don't want the
Okay.
backlash of like, oh, she told me I had to pay utilities, even though she signed it on paper and there's a
Uh-huh.
contract.
Okay.
So there's a negative association with that.
Okay, well, would an assertive person really respond to that type of behavior from other people? I mean, so someone was
Live
assertive.
with you.
What's that?
If they live with you. If they don't live with you, then you can just walk away from it.
Well, keep in mind, I can't help
Yeah.
you control other people.
Yeah,
I can help you control your responses.
yeah.
So what would be a response where, and I think assertiveness is a really good one, but you also have to add something else to it. So if you get this crazy backlash, you're unmoved.
Yeah.
What
That's
would,
the part that I.
yeah, what would,
Yeah.
tell me about that. Tell me about that part where, like, yeah, people get really passive aggressive when you get assertive.
She's very.
You're gonna
passive
expect this. So what kind of strength would you have to not be moved by this?
To not care about the little things
Okay.
that she's doing, like
Okay.
constantly moving my stuff and throwing things of mine in the floor
Okay,
after she uses my stuff.
okay.
I don't know how to not have that drive me crazy.
Mhm. Okay. Have you ever thought of just
Amusement?
asking her to not live there anymore?
I have. She's in her 30-day notice
All right, okay, good.
after a week and a half of being there. So
She's lived there a week and a half and
and I asked her at that point to move out.
okay, well,
I
you
gave
did
her
good.
incentives.
Okay, so you just have to endure the next 30 days.
2 weeks, assuming that she leaves. And then I don't want to, like, I worry about, what if she doesn't leave?
Mhm.
What if she meanders about my place? And then I was like, well, I'll change the lock on the door. And then
Yeah.
I look online, it's like, that's illegal, they can sue you. I'm like, awesome, that's great.
Mhm. Okay.
So.
Well, I mean, there are all sorts of strategies, but I would just stand around and stare at her. You know, that's one thing you do. Just silently stare at her. Every time she's there, walk where she's at, stare at her. That's what I would do. Walk where she goes to, stare at her. When she says something, you just stare at her and make her uncomfortable. That's what I would do, but that's a different thing. We're talking about how you would, the feeling you want to be able to
It's
confidently.
like a rush of it's a rush of adrenaline, and that
That you
makes
want.
that I get. I'm Irish.
Okay, okay,
And it just kind of like,
okay.
and then I get really like,
So you would want an assertiveness that's associated with some calm.
yes.
Ah,
And where I am just centered and calm and unmoved, and this is how it is, and then I can observe the things going on. If there's an issue of control, because I don't want to see my stuff moved around, I don't want to see my stuff on the floor.
okay,
You know.
okay. So you can see yourself being assertive, centered, calm, unmoved. Those feelings would really work in this situation.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that somebody would respond less psychotically
Mm-hmm.
if I were able to maintain that space.
Okay, okay, put your hand back down there. Okay, so close your eyes for a moment and imagine what it would be like to feel this centered, this calm feeling, this unmoved. Just let everything go silent for a moment. When you've got that, just nod your head or let me know. Okay, good. Now also, as you notice this centered, calm, unmoved feeling, go ahead and adjust your body so that you feel it even more. Your body's in the position that allows you to feel this centered, calm, unmoved feeling. And you've got that. Now, with this feeling, sort of use it like a tow rope. Go back in time when you have felt this. And if you haven't, that's okay. We're creating a feeling.
Yeah.
So focus on this centered, calm, unmoved feeling. You got it? Okay. Add in the feeling you call assertiveness. And let that sort of demonstrate itself physically in your body. Good. Good. This is a good feeling, isn't it? I like this feeling. Okay. You'll notice I am now pressing anchoring a different one, her pinky knuckle. Okay. Okay, take a deep breath, your eyes open. Okay, so you know, I want you to notice something. I want you to notice how easy it is to feel worried. You feel that? Okay. Take a deep breath. Notice what it's like when you feel this sort of calm centeredness. Got that? Feels pretty good, doesn't it? I'm going to take a moment, sort of turn it up a little bit more. Got it? Okay, good. Take a deep breath. Okay, you'll notice this feeling of calm centeredness. Pretty good. Feels entirely different from the word. doesn't it? Okay, so we've now set up the two anchors. Okay, now I'm going to go through it. I'll describe what I do afterwards because it's a sort of long process. So, in your mind, close your eyes. I want you to go back in time to that very first memory that you call the first time. Put yourself right there in that moment. See what you saw, what you heard, feel what you felt. Now, instantly, bring in this calm centeredness. And with your mind, your imagination, just change how you respond to the situation. Do something entirely differently, now feeling this calm, centered, unmoved assertiveness, and experience the whole thing differently. When you've gone through the entire experience, we call that first time, and feel this sense of, and it feels good, doesn't it? Okay, good. Now go back to the memory you called multiple roommates acting insane. Put yourself right there in that memory. See what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt. Go ahead and bring in this calm centeredness. You go ahead and change how you respond in the memory. See what you saw now differently. Do things differently with this calm centeredness, motivating you, supporting you, encouraging you. You go through that entire event doing and responding differently because you now feel this calm, unmoved centeredness. Got it? You feel this positive feeling? Feels good? Now go ahead and go to that one you call late for rent. Put yourself right there in that memory, but instantly bring about this calm centeredness as if it's already theirs. And change how you respond to the event. With this calm centeredness now there, so you do things differently. You go all the way through the event. You reach the end. You did great. You feel this calm centeredness. The event's all over. And you feel good. You've done that. Nod your head. Take your time. Good. And now, go back to that most recent event that is late for utilities and instantly bring about this sense of calm centeredness. As if it were already there, just waiting for it. You want to change how you respond. You do things entirely differently. This calm centeredness, this assertiveness is there. You feel good. Feels good. Got it? Now go to a time in your future. In this case, let's say your roommate's acting like a B word. Put yourself right there, but now you feel this calm centeredness. And notice you respond differently. You feel this assertiveness. It's funny. Go to another time in your future. She's getting really passive aggressive now, and you're totally calm and centered. You're feeling very assertive. You feel strong. You feel good, don't you? Yes? Go all the way through. Go to another time in your future. And this calm centeredness, this assertiveness is already there, just waiting for you. And start creating just one event right after another where this calm centeredness is there. You feel great. You know exactly how to respond. One right after another. Feels good, doesn't it? You take a deep breath. Open your eyes. Okay. Go ahead and try and feel worry. Tell me what you notice.
We really want to go there.
Well,
That's my
Well-
home. I just got home
well,
from my home.
try to go ahead and put yourself in a situation where you imagine dealing with your roommate and tell me what you notice is different.
Right now, I feel a little bit more compassion.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. How would you deal with it differently?
Well, I did a really good job of dealing with it. It's the butterflies that take over my body. And I just was like, oh, well, yeah, the bills are going to be late, so maybe some stuff's going to be turned off. Okay, bye.
All right.
You know?
Now,
I
does
guess
that work for you?
What I said this
Yeah.
morning? Yes,
does-
this morning was
Does this
fine.
work for you?
Oh,
What
this
you
work-
what you
yes.
what you described now? Does this work for you? Is this a response that is going to help you?
Yeah, but then I have to deal with not having internet.
Well, you can always disconnect her end.
Yeah.
Just use the plug-in and disconnect the Wi-Fi.
Right.
You know. Okay. Okay. Now, how can we change this so it's even better? What can you? The point here is that what we're trying to do is make it so that when you start finding yourself in a situation where you used to worry, you feel a calm
Yeah.
centeredness.
Yeah. And another example would be when I get work emails, because back when I was a teacher a long time ago, all my work emails had some kind of drama, something, you didn't do this right, you didn't do that right, this parent's doing school, blah, 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 blah. And so, to this day, I'm not even a teacher anymore, but anytime I get an email, I'm like, oh my God, it went off, you know? And
Okay.
it could be like, hey, I just want to tell you you did great this week, and I'm like,
Okay, close your eyes. Close
You
your
know.
eyes.
so I can see
Okay,
this
it-
applicable.
Okay, okay. Go to that moment when you see what you, go to your computer in your mind, turn it on, you see an email, bring that sense of calm centeredness right there. That sense of calm centeredness right there, you got it?
Yeah, you gotta push the pinky.
And notice how you respond differently. Just change your whole response now with this feeling of assertiveness, this calm, centered, unmoved feeling. And go all the way through reading that email right from open to close to delete. And you feel great when you've done that, let me know. Go to the next email. Bring this feeling right there automatically. Got it? Go to the next email. Next one after that, just start to run through your mind automatically with the response right there. Feels good? Okay, open your eyes. Okay. Now, think about worrying about your email. What do you notice now?
It's just, you know.
Right,
it's
okay.
me.
Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, good. Try to worry about your email now. That's it. Okay, good, that's the test, excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry about all the roommate trauma.
No. This is stuff we deal
You
with.
guys know a lot about me now.
Okay. So, I set 2 anchors, and again, this is a conversation. It can last anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 to 30 minutes sometimes, just getting the details. Setting 2 anchors, you have to determine the state, the problem state, and what the solution state is. The first one is anchoring the problem state. I use the big knuckle just for that. And the second, and going back in time, taking 4 different events from the most recent. Ideally, you want them to go all the way back to the very first time they felt the feeling. Sometimes you'll get that. And sometimes you'll just get a very early memory of the feeling. That's fine. Once you have those times and you've named them, now you work on the positive response, the resource state. And you work to make sure that every time you touch this, they feel the positive state. Okay, once you have that, test it. How do you feel when you test this? They should feel pretty crappy. Okay? How do you feel when I touch here? You should feel the resource state. So you've got those 2 anchors set. The process then is to start with, and this is a little complicated, but we'll go through it. The process is to start with the earliest memory. With the earliest memory, and you touch, you touch the anchor for the discomfort. Start with the earliest memory. Notice what it's like when you feel this feeling. You're there in that earliest memory. Now, bring in this new resource. And so you lift up and you move to the positive anchor so that they now have this new resource, and you ask them, you instruct them to change how they would respond with this new feeling. They go through the whole event now in their mind. Okay, that's the 4th one, the very earliest one. You then, using the negative anchor again, go to the one after that, the number 3 event. And then what you do is you briefly touch them both at the same time. You're trying to sort of confuse the 2 and then lift up on the negative so they have the resource. And they have them change that memory. The 3rd time, which is the second to the most recent, you fire them both at the same time. so that now they should actually be equal. They should both have a positive feeling to them. Have them change the memory with this new resource. And the very last one is you touch the negative anchor, and the negative anchor should now be associated with the positive feeling. And you have them change the most recent event. After that, you future pace it. You have them imagine times in the future where this feeling is there. Okay. A little long, a little convoluted. Did you guys take good notes? Okay. Who wants to try this? And I'll be happy to supervise. We can either break into groups and do it, into pairs and do it with each other, which I think would be great. Or else we could piece it up a little bit more and I could supervise 2 people doing it. Who feels daring enough to try this? Dan.
Yeah, I'll
All right.
give it a try. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go ahead and let's break up into some groups here, and let's see what we can do. I'll be around. I'll wander around. If you have questions, let me know.
Yeah.
How are we doing?
Oh, great.
Okay. Questions, comments about the whole process?
Very, very interesting.
You had a pretty positive effect?
Yeah, very positive.
Okay. One thing I would ask you guys to do, if you work with somebody, ask them, what would you do different? What advice would you give them having gone through the process with this person? So if you have anything to feedback, go ahead and do that. Let's do that now. All right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Good place.
Good feedback?
Yes.
Okay. Always a good thing to do when we partner up with somebody to do something, give them feedback. Tell them what really worked well. And also tell them this could work a little bit better, or you did this, or I saw him do this, and maybe it met an expectation or something like that. But as far as the 2 anchors, everything's understandable about which ones to touch. Okay. Questions? Comments? Anything? Okay. All right. So we're wrapping up. God, it's only been almost 2 hours. Okay.
Time flies.
Yeah. What I want to do, let's see. Next week, I think we can do it at the same time.
Yeah.
Same time. Is there something you want to cover? Something I would like to cover, which is what you guys did, which is pacing and leading.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay? That we can cover relatively quickly. Is there anything else? I mean, I can go all the way into hypnotic inductions and things like that, and talk about hypnosis as well.
Yeah, just to brainstorm a bit, maybe, in my course anyways, some of the things that are some of the basics, foundation, are kind of like sensory acuity.
Good.
So, as we're working with people and as we're, if we ever want to go on a VA coach or something, it's something like, you're watching for them, you're listening for the changes in the tone of their voice,
Mm-hmm.
or they're shifting in their posture, or, so that might be
Okay.
also a good one.
Yeah, if we're gonna talk about pacing and leading, I think it's also good. We can talk about mirroring and matching as well.
Goes along with it.
There's verbal. Did you guys deal with verbal pacing and leading at all?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Okay, good.
We talked about several aspects.
Okay, great.
Okay, so maybe like adding on like sensory, a little bit into like the sensory systems and like
Okay.
perceiving the differences and like different words, or like how we can tell.
Okay.
The
Good. We'll do that. I brought these as some resources here. If my whole experience with neuro-linguistic programming and dealing with the linguistic types of behavioral changes has to do with, are pretty much condensed into this book. Who asked me about the name of this person? Oh, that was right.
Dentalian.
Dentalian. Cool name, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, who's familiar with Dentalian? Okay, there is this archaic magical grimoire that is alleged to be written by King Solomon. where he conjured up 72 spirits, call them demons if you like, the Goetia, the Ars Goetia, and he captured them in a brass bottle. And each of them had different skills and abilities, and he would conjure them to do his will. Of the 72 demons, spirits, the 71st is named Dantalion, and he is described thusly. Oh, no, wrong one. His office is to teach the arts and science unto any, and to declare secret counsel to any. For he knoweth the thoughts of men and women, and can change them at his will. He can cause love and show similitude of any person, in other words, the likeness, and show the same by vision. Let them be in what part of the world they will. So, in other words, he messes with people's minds and can change and influence them. So I thought, well, first of all, I like the name Dantalion. And second of all, at the time, that's exactly what I wanted to do. And so I took on the name Dantalion as a pen name. So this is something I do want to talk about sometime. This guy Dantalion, when he wrote this book, he was a very cynical person, and he sort of wanted to use that cynicism to tell people how to form a cult. It's not a bad book. Now, since that time, I personally have sort of changed, but I also interacted with some people who have a very strong understanding of leadership and how people can influence other people by simply being an authority. And the best and most nefarious example of that is Charles Manson. And a friend of mine, who I'll be happy to talk about at some point, he basically looked at all of Charles Manson's behaviors, the things he did, to make it so that he could tell people to go murder someone. They would go murder them and feel good about it. And he didn't use any hypnosis. He just influenced them. And I thought, well, first of all, that capacity of authority is, first of all, very powerful, but when you understand it, it's also very useful in how you can apply it. So I have added to that about 13 or 14 pages from the original book that are strictly about the things that Charles Manson did. And I have nuanced it so that it's not quite so cynical and filled with, I'll call it mindfuckery, so to speak. But I would like to talk about that sometime, and we'll do some little exercises on it. Any other questions? Comments?
So next Sunday at 1 o'clock?
You guys ready to do that? Can you bring some people over? Some people you want to just sort of mess with, influence? Maybe don't tell them that I'm going to make them forget their name. Okay, I'm actually going to try that until I get it. But I have done it. It's pretty amazing when it happens. All right, last questions. Anyone? Okay, Dan, again, this is an amazing theater, and Dan's the one who contributes it. I don't want to forget acknowledging him. And because you're here, you're not somewhere else, so I appreciate that sacrifice you made. And I do this for free. If you would like to offer a contribution of some sort, I will accept it with great gratitude. It's entirely in your hands. And I'm going to hang around for a while. If you guys want to talk with me, chat, I'll be happy to. All right?
Cool. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
No, thank you, David.
Thanks.